What you're about to watch is not AI. 100 years ago, the German expressionist filmmaker Fritz Lang made his masterpiece.
In 1927, a German filmmaker spent 5 million Reichsmarks, deployed 37,000 extras, and nearly destroyed a studio, all to show us what the year 2026 would look like. And he nailed it. Fritz Lang's Metropolis is a film about a glittering city in the sky, built on the backs of workers who never see the sun. A city where a robot is built to look human, not to help people, but to manipulate them. A city where the people at the top control everything, and the people at the bottom are so invisible they might as well not exist. That's not a movie plot, that's a news headline. This is the story of how one film, made almost 100 years ago, became the most accurate prediction in cinema history. The Impossible Film. Fritz Lang started filming on May 22, 1925, at Babelsberg Studios in Germany. The budget was supposed to be 1.5 million Reichsmarks, but Lang was a perfectionist, some would say a tyrant. By October 1926, the budget had exploded to over 5 million Reichsmarks, roughly 21 million euros today, the most expensive European film ever made. He used 37,000 extras, thousands of unemployed workers, drafted to march through underground tunnels in synchronized despair, soaked in freezing water, pushed to physical exhaustion. The lead actress, Brigitte Helm, later called it the worst experience of her life. But the technical ambition was staggering. Lang's team pioneered the Schufftown process, a mirror trick that placed live actors inside miniature cityscapes by scraping away reflective glass so the camera could see through to the performers behind it. Before blue screens, before CGI, and the Maschinenmensch robot, sculpted from a new material called plastic wood, became the visual template for C-3PO, Blade Runner's replicants, and basically every humanoid robot in pop culture for the next century. Lang broke his studio. He broke his actors. But he built a world that outlasted all of them. The city that ate its children. The year is 2026. Metropolis is a vertical megacity. The wealthy live above ground in gleaming towers. The ruler, Jo Fredersen, governs from the new Tower of Babel. But beneath the surface, a faceless underclass operates massive machines in 10-hour shifts. They exist to power the city above. They're not people, they're fuel. Fredersen's son, Freder, discovers this hidden world and watches a catastrophic machine explosion. In a hallucinatory vision, the machine transforms into Moloch, the ancient god that devours children. The system requires human sacrifice. Nobody at the top cares. A woman named Maria preaches to the workers underground. She prophesies a mediator who will bridge the gap between capital and labor through empathy. But Fredersen enlists a mad scientist to build a robot replica of Maria, a false Maria, to incite the workers to self-destructive violence, giving him justification to crush them. The false Maria whips them into a frenzy. They destroy the heart machine. The resulting flood nearly drowns their own children. In the end, Freder forces his father and the workers' foreman to shake hands. The mediator between the head and the hands must be the heart. It's a fairy tale ending, and almost everyone, including Fritz Lang himself, eventually realized it was a lie. The Shadow. Nobody mentions. The script was written by Thea von Harbu, Lang's wife. Her writing was steeped in Christian allegory and German Romanticism. By 1932, she'd joined the Nazi Party. When the Nazis took power, Goebbels offered Lang the position of head of the German film industry. Lang fled to Paris that same night. Von Harbu stayed and kept making films under the Third Reich. That split changes how you read the movie. Von Harbu's script depicts workers as a mindless horde, easily manipulated by the first demagogue who speaks to them. Their salvation doesn't come from organizing. It comes from a rich man's son convincing his father to be nicer. The dictator keeps his tower. Nothing structurally changes. Siegfried Kracauer, in From Caligari to Hitler, called this a sham alliance. He argued Fredersen doesn't lose power, he gains more. By winning the workers' hearts, He extends control from the physical into the psychological. And Fritz Lang agreed. By the 1960s, he openly disavowed the film's message. He called the idea that the heart mediates between employer and employee absurd. He said the problem is social, not moral. The creator rejected his own creation. But here's the thing, that rejection might be the most prophetic part of the entire film. The film that almost vanished. Metropolis premiered in January 1927 at 153 minutes. H.G. Wells called it the silliest film he'd ever seen. It bombed, nearly bankrupted the studio. Then the distributors hacked it down to 90 minutes. Entire subplots vanished, characters erased, the story rendered incomprehensible. For decades, the original cut was considered lost, but in 2008, in a small cinema museum in Buenos Aires, a curator named Paula Felix Didier opened a rusted film can containing a damaged 16mm print. It held 25 minutes of footage unseen since the 1927 Berlin premiere. The definitive restoration premiered in 2010 at 148 minutes. For the first time in over 80 years, the world could see Lang's vision as he intended it. Which brings us to the part you've been waiting for. 2026, the prophecy arrives. The film is set in 2026. We are in 2026. So let's do the math. In Metropolis, the elite live in paradise while workers rot underground. According to Oxfam's 2025 report, billionaire wealth jumped 16% in a single year, reaching $18.3 trillion. Federal Reserve data shows the top 1% of American households now control about $55 trillion in wealth. That's roughly equal to what the bottom 90% holds combined, 1% at the top, 90% at the bottom. Joe Fredersen would be proud. In Metropolis, workers are subordinated to machines. In 2025, the Strategic Organizing Center found Amazon's warehouse injury rate was 6 per 100 workers, serious injuries at nearly double the non-Amazon rate. 54% of Amazon workers said algorithmic quotas were so punishing they couldn't take bathroom breaks. Their bodies aren't subordinated to machines. They're subordinated to algorithms. Same principle, different century. And the workers are fighting back. In late 2025, the Make Amazon Pay campaign organized strikes across 20 countries on 6 continents. That's the workers abandoning the heart machine. Then there's the Maschinenmensch. In the film, a robot is built to replace and manipulate humans. Goldman Sachs estimated generative AI could automate the equivalent of 300 million jobs globally. The robot doesn't liberate, it replaces. And the false Maria, the deepfake, a synthetic human designed to deceive the masses. By 2025, an estimated 8 million deepfake videos were circulating online. During the 2024 election cycle, AI-generated media was deployed to erode trust, manipulate opinion, and co-opt real people's identities. The workers in Lang's film couldn't tell Maria from the machine. Modern audiences can't tell a real video from a fake. Even the architecture is manifesting. Saudi Arabia's Neom project, The Line, was designed as a 500-meter-tall, 170-kilometer-long mirrored city in the desert. A vertical megacity funded by sovereign wealth, not a democracy, a hierarchy. Architectural critics have drawn direct comparisons to Metropolis. But it doesn't stop there. Think about surveillance. In the film, Joe Fredersen monitors the entire city from a massive central console in his tower. He sees everything. He controls the flow of labor from above. In 2025, modern logistics companies use AI-powered scanners, biometric badges, and ubiquitous cameras to track worker movements down to the second. Employees are automatically penalized for something called time-off task, which includes bathroom breaks. A researcher at the London School of Economics described these systems as reducing workers to data points, intensifying labor discipline, and deepening inequality. The modern warehouse is a digital metropolis. The eye of the algorithm is inescapable. And the flooding. Metropolis ends with catastrophic floods because the infrastructure was neglected. In 2023, neglected dams in Derna, Libya, collapsed during a storm. Over 5,000 people died as 30 million cubic meters of water swept entire neighborhoods into the sea. Scientific analysis confirmed the disaster wasn't purely natural. It was the result of aging infrastructure ignored by feuding authorities. In 2024, Valencia, Spain received an entire year's worth of rain in 8 hours. Over 220 people died. 36,000 were displaced. In both cases, the most vulnerable populations bore the cost of failures at the top. The workers' city floods because nobody in the tower fixed the pipes. That's not a metaphor anymore. That's a pattern. What Lang got wrong. But I believe in honesty. The prediction isn't airtight. The film's biggest weakness is its resolution. A handshake between boss and worker, brokered by a privileged kid who happens to have a conscience. No structural change. No redistribution. No union. The workers go back underground. The boss keeps his tower. Everyone promises to be nicer. That's not a solution. That's a press release. H.G. Wells identified this problem the week the film came out. He called the whole thing sentimental nonsense. Krakauer argued the ending was proto-fascist, and Fritz Lang himself admitted in 1972 that the film tries to solve a social problem in a childish way. And the film's depiction of workers as a mindless mob who destroy their own children because a dancing robot told them to? That's not just wrong, it's insulting. Modern labor movements are nothing like that. Amazon workers organizing strikes across 6 continents are strategic actors navigating surveillance states, algorithmic management, and hostile legal frameworks. They aren't an irrational horde. They're sophisticated, determined, and angry for very rational reasons. Lang captured the structure of inequality brilliantly, but he completely missed the intelligence and agency of the people trapped within it. And that matters. Because the most dangerous idea in the film isn't the robot or the flood. It's the suggestion that working people can't save themselves. But maybe that's the final prophecy, the one Lang didn't intend. Because the most relevant thing about Metropolis in 2026 isn't the parts it got right, it's the part it got wrong. The film tells us empathy alone, a handshake, a change of heart, can fix a system designed to exploit. And 100 years later, we're still being told the same thing. Be patient. Trust the process. The mediator is coming. The mediator isn't coming. In 2026, cultural critics are calling this the year of the Metropolis dystopia. Scholars are writing essays about how Lang's vertical city isn't fiction anymore. Museums from Amsterdam to Los Angeles are screening the restored version to sold-out crowds. The iFilm Museum in Amsterdam screened it with a live techno score from Jeff Mills, linking the film's relentless industrial rhythm to modern electronic anxiety. A film festival in Milan is using the Metropolis name and iconography for a major international event. The BFI in London and the American Cinematheque in LA continue to program it as the genesis point for every cinematic consideration of the future. And the reason isn't because it predicted our technology, it's because it predicted our denial. The lie at the center of Metropolis, that the system will fix itself if the people at the top just have a little more heart, is the same lie being told right now. And the workers at the bottom of the tower are still waiting for that handshake. Fritz Lang spent 5 million Reichsmarks building a future he hoped we'd never live in. And then he spent the rest of his life apologizing for the lie he told at the end of it. Maybe it's time we stop waiting for the mediator and start listening to the people underground.